Hello guys, this is Tucker. I am just going to make a video today on openings in general and about how to study openings. So I'm going to go make a new study, and it is just going to be called My Opening Study. Public, everyone. Yeah, there we go. So I'm going to start a study. I'm going to call it E4 because I play E4. So to study openings, first I would say look at the position from the white pieces. What makes the most sense for you? Is it E4? Do you want a more aggressive game? Do you like the tactical openings that come out of E4? Or do you prefer D4 with slower games, positional games that allow you to show expertise rather than just calculating and playing traps? Or do you like to play C4, the English opening? It generally reverts back to a D4 opening because both are commonly played, but if you do play C4, you can very well surprise your opponents. Another option is Knight F3. If you open with Knight F3, apparently that's been done quite a bit, 214,000 times. If you open with Knight F3, you can keep your options open to play E4, D4, C4. It's a very wide open game. So these four are the most common opening moves. I'm just going to go over this like I'm building a repertoire for myself. And so I play E4 because I think it's the most natural move. It opens up line for your bishop, a line for your queen. You have a clear route to castle. You put your knight on F3. And it just makes sense to me visually. D4 is almost the same, but it doesn't develop your bishop. So, I'm going to delete that, and we're going to play E4. Now, I like to use this. This is called the Opening Explorer on Lichess, and it'll tell you what the most common openings are at the top level. Now, part of the reason I think this is flawed is that it's all master games. This, if it'll show for me, here we go. Average rating 2,401 right there, if you can look by my mouse. That's the average rating of the people who it has studied playing this opening. So, it doesn't have a very good sample size, and for beginner, this isn't necessarily how often you'll see each opening. So I do want to clarify that. But it is a good list for what openings you need to know. So first of all, although C5 is the most popular, I want to look at E5. So say I like to play the Italian game. So I'm going to play Knight F3. Knight F3 is the most common move. You can also play, for instance, Knight C3. You can play D4. You can play F4. You can play Bishop C4. These are all moves, and the beautiful thing about openings is you get to choose yours, and your opponent gets to choose theirs. So, although I don't play any of these other lines, I like Knight F3 because it develops a piece while attacking the opponent's e-pawn. That's a very basic opening idea, but a good one nonetheless. Now I look again at all of black's possible responses, the most common of those being Knight C6. So I'll look at Knight C6 and see what move I would like to play. The most common moves here are Bishop B5, the Ruy Lopez, Bishop C4, the Italian game, and D4, the Scotch game. Other than that, there's Knight C3, the Three Knights opening. There's C3, the Ponziani opening. There's Bishop E2, the Taylor opening. There's D3, which continues what we call the normal variation. And there's g3. g3 isn't named. I guess it is. The Konstantinopolski. Wonderful. But I've never seen that in a game, so I wouldn't worry about it. So I'm going to delete all these moves, because I only play one of them. And actually, I deleted the move I play already, but that's okay. So what looks the most natural to me is bishop c4, because I know the f7 pawn is weak, and I can attack it. This develops a piece while attacking a pawn, and it gets me ready to castle right away. I can get my king safe and attack at the same time and get all my pieces into the game. So that is a good opening. It's called the Italian game. I'll be going over it in a later video, but for now, I just want to go over how to make your repertoire. So I like the Italian game, so I am choosing this as my repertoire. So let's continue. Let's keep going a little deeper. So you want to find what you would call a dream position. Black plays bishop c5. I like to play b4, the Evans Gambit. And this brings up another point. I like to play a gambit. That is not the most common move, not even close. It's the fourth most common move. And there are pluses and minuses to it. White is being very aggressive in this opening, and he has to know his stuff or else he's going to lose very quickly. But I like that kind of opening, so I will play the Evans Gambit. Now, I have to look at black's options from here, and the most common of those is bishop takes b4, white plays c3, black plays any of these moves. Now, these are all each variations with their own theory, but me personally, I like this variation here. It's called the Pierce variation. It's the most common way that this game could go. Now, black's most common move is knight e7. After that, oh, that's an intoxicated knight. He plays knight f6, and the next most common move is d6. But way on down here is d takes c3, and for beginners, this is a really natural move. White hung a pawn, so black will take the pawn. But now, as white, I have a trick. I play bishop takes f7. Now, if black plays king takes f7, white can play queen d5 check, and black is in big trouble here. I don't know what the computer would say, and it does not matter what the computer says. I would always keep your computer turned off when you're working on your openings, because you need to look at the position and see what looks good for you. Because a computer will always play differently than a person would and should. So I like this position. White is down a piece and 2 pawns, but black's king is wide open, and white can attack it with knight g5, with bishop g5. He can later play knight takes c3 if he gets this bishop out of here, and it's hard for black to defend. Black just has to move his king after this check. Say he plays a move like this. White can play here, threatening checkmate, but also he has this idea that if knight takes, then we take with check, and we get our piece back. So these are just opening ideas, and this is my dream position. But as you can tell, I'm not always going to get this position every single game, so we have to go back and look where black could play moves that wouldn't let us get to our dream position. Let's say he plays king to f8. What am I going to play then? Am I going to play the same move? No, because it doesn't work, and now I don't have a good attack on my opponent's king. So, I need a better option. I need to look at this variation after king f8 and see what I want to play. Probably bishop g5 here. Now, Of course, black has multiple moves. Knight f6 looks good. And after knight f6, probably bishop f6, gf6. But you have to look at these variations, and you have to look at each option your opponent has and see what you want to do there. Now, I wouldn't suggest going very deep in your opening prep as beginners. Maybe move 10 at the deepest. But you need to know all sorts of variations, like if I play queen d5 check and he doesn't play queen e8, or if I play bishop takes f7 check. I had this in a game today, and he played king f8. I don't remember what I played here. Maybe bishop g5? I think I did play bishop g5 here. So you have to know all of these variations. And for instance, here, d takes c3 is my dream position, and white has great winning chances, but it's not the main move. Notice that knight ge7 is the main move. I need to be ready for that, because my opponents will play that just as much as they'll take on c3. You have to do this going all the way back until eventually you get to a line like this where we don't have the same kind of ideas. This is called the McDonald variation. It's a completely different line. Eventually we get back so far, I don't even get to play the Italian game. What if my opponent plays this? Bishop c4 is not that good of a move here. I just lose a pawn. So I have to get ready for this variation. And now it's tough. I have a lot of moves. Look at how many moves that is. That's a lot to memorize. And that's not even a tenth of all you would have to memorize 11 moves deep. Now, that was e4, e5, and that was probably a quarter of my preparation for e4, e5. But he doesn't have to play e5. He could play c5. If he plays c5, am I going to play the open Ruy Lopez that goes like this? Am I going to play this? And then am I going to have to learn the Najdorf, the Dragon, the Scheveningen, the Classical? Am I going to play all of these and learn all of these openings? Or would I rather learn a sideline, such as knight to c3? And while it isn't as good, necessarily, black can easily get into trouble after I play f4, the Grand Prix attack. It's a dangerous line. But I have to decide all these things, and then I have to see what my opponents could do. So that's why I would caution beginners. A lot of beginners study things like this. Let's see if I even know this. Knight f6, knight g5, d5. Pawn take d5, knight take d5, d4. Oh well, knight take f7. A lot of players study this line. It's called the fried liver attack. And white sacrifices a piece to get a lot of pressure on black. This has been played a few times by grandmasters. So I don't want to say that that this is a bad opening, or that, say, you shouldn't study it, but I do want to caution you against it, because this is very rare. Black has much better moves to play than these. He could play this line instead, and you have to be ready for all of it. So that's most of what I have to say about the opening. I've only been talking for 15 minutes, but I do want to say, You also need to be ready for the French defense. Are you going to play the main line against the French? Are you going to play d4, d5? Are you going to play the advanced French, the exchange French, the mainline French, or the Tarrasch variation? So you have to be ready for whatever response black will play. So all I'm saying is learning one line isn't enough. Learning the bong cloud attack isn't enough. So I suppose I'll just keep going over. I'll go over a few more openings. Also, the Kalman is the Caro-Kann defense, which not many beginners play, but they should. The Caro-Kann is one of black's best options to fight for an advantage. I don't play it. I don't like it, but a lot of people do and should. So you get this kind of position here. And it's very interesting to see them try and fight against it. Black has all these ideas. It's like a London system as black almost. It's extremely solid. Also there's the Pierts, where you can play d4 and black doesn't go e5. Black goes knight f6. Black plays knight f6. Can I play it? Yeah, knight f6, g6, bishop g7, castles. He can go e5, c5. It looks like the King's Indian defense. And so that's the first part of how you should go through your repertoire. You need responses to all of these responses to your first move. e4. Or if you're going to play d4, how are you going to respond to knight f6? How are you going to respond to d5? How are you going to respond to e6? How are you going to respond to c5? How are you going to respond to d6? You need to know all these things. And while you don't need to learn all of these 30 moves deep like some chess maniac, you're also going to be better off the more you study these. Because while your opponent is thinking for 10 minutes, you can play these moves in seconds because you know them and you've seen them before. Your opponent, who might just be winging it, has to just make it up as he goes and hope he gets it right. You know that if you play e4, e5, knight f3, if you play this line, the Evans Gambit, and you know this line, you know that up to this point, Morozevich has played this. Nigel Short has played this. Peter Svidler has played this. Those are a few of my favorite players. That's why I wanted to say that. But you know that this has been played by masters, and that to me at least, that gives me a high level of confidence that I'm playing a good opening when I know it's been on the board with masters before. So that's how you start. Now I would say, let's make an e4 black repertoire, which for me is the French defense. So I'll make a French defense file. What did I do? My internet's going out. But you're going to want to make a French defense, or a Sicilian defense, or an e5, or a Caro-Kann, or a Pierts. Whatever file you want to make, you need to know how you're going to respond to e4. And then maybe I'll make a Grunfeld. Siri, I don't want to hear you, Siri. I'll make a Grunfeld defense file where, if it will actually load ever, I have a response to d4, I play knight f6, white plays c4, I play g6, white plays knight c3, I play bishop g7. And oh, I don't play bishop g7. That's a different defense. I play d5. But it's important to have all these worked out. But it's also important that you know studying openings isn't the entire game. There's a whole game of chess that you have to know to be great. And I'm not saying that I expect you to be great and to study for 10 hours a day every day until you're the grandmaster, the champion of the world. But if you want to improve at chess, studying the opening is an important part of the game. And I think that it's the quickest way for you to improve. It teaches you why you should play certain moves, when you should play them. And you can always be confident if you know that you've played exactly the same position before. I have had this position that you're seeing right now on the board before. And if I had seen this for the first time, I would be very scared. As white or black, honestly. But I've played it before. And since I've played it before, I know that I am fine and that white's winning here. So that's kind of my soapbox on openings. Tonight or tomorrow, I'll get started on the first opening series. I don't know exactly what that's going to be yet, but I will find out and decide in the next couple of hours. So, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next time.